See, in my hood, they ain't really much to eat. Popeyes on the corner, McDonald's right across the street. All this talk about guns and the drugs, pretty serious. But look at what they feeding y'all. That's what's really killing us. Please change the food in my school, make it good. Get that fake food up out of my hood. Hope the message not misunderstood. Grow and cook your own food, yes you could. Got the little homies in the garden, got the big homies selling collard greens in the north side. Ain't starving since community cooks been on the scene.
Screaming hot Cheetos and Takis, boy, you better eat your broccoli. Fake food is kinda lame, putting poison in your brain.
You want to know where the meat comes from? I have all the information. This tells you, okay? But what I want to tell you is what really freaked me out the most is that when I was doing research on where this meat's coming from in this fast food joints and in your grocery stores and what the future of food is, listen to this. Listen, all you have to do is you just type in and Google search what lab-grown meat companies are there, okay? And then this is going to come up. This page will come up. But when I was doing the research, the two top most extreme things that fried me the most, no pun intended, was there's a company, BioBQ in Texas, and they can literally grow lab-grown brisket. Okay, this fries me. All right, the next one that really, really gets me, because see what I saw at Costco when tallow was hot. Everybody knows that tallow's really hot, cooking tallow, all that. Now we have this company here out of Spain, and you know what they make? They make lab-grown tallow, lab-grown beef fat, and lab-grown pork fat, lab-grown chicken fat.
4th Street, the university doesn't look like much, but according to new claims in these court documents, the Biological Resource Center was essentially running a chop shop for human body parts, mixing, matching, and selling them in ways we'd never heard of until tonight. One FBI agent revealing what it was really like inside the Phoenix body donation facility, from buckets of heads, arms, and legs to coolers filled with severed penises when the FBI raided the building. He even spotted a smaller head sewn onto a larger torso in a, quote, Frankenstein manner. The limbs, according to that agent, with no apparent identification. A torso with a head apparently went for $2,400. A leg about $1,100. They'd even sell knees and feet alone for under $500. The owner of the Biological Resource Center was already sentenced, but he was only given probation.
Which exhibition are you trying to get to see? Are you trying to get the Silk exhibition?
We're just locked out of our offices currently, sir.
Minus Prince Charles, who can trace his ancestry back to Romania's dark and distant past.
The genealogy shows that I'm descended from Vlad the Impaler. So I do have a bit of a stake in the country.
As it were.
Now, Charles actually spends most of the year with orphans from the Royal Family Foundation. You can't make this stuff up, folks.
He moved in 5 years ago to Count Dracula's castle, and he lives with a group of homeless children in it.
No, he doesn't.
God.
Prince Charles. Prince Harry's dad.
Prince Charles, the heir of the throne of the dragon.
You guys ever notice how tiny and small the rainbows are in Australia? My boy Lyndon took this video in Australia, and you can just see how tiny the arch is on the rainbows in Australia. Isn't that super interesting? Because this is what a rainbow looks like in Vancouver, Canada. This one's in Ontario that I took a while ago, and you can see like how massive this rainbow is. They are huge in Canada. Now let's take a look at what your loving government has told you. This is how rainbows are created, guys. The sun rays hit the raindrops. It refracts twice, and then the observer sees the rainbow. Now that's interesting, because in order for us to scientifically create a rainbow, like actually use real science, create a rainbow inside, we need sunlight, we need water, and an object that can act as a prism. So where's the prism here? We got sunlight, we got water, but where's the prism? Now, if this is really what's happening here, guys, how is it that Australia's rainbows are like this, and then Canada's rainbows are like this? It's almost as if there is a prism of some sorts, and maybe that prism is higher in Canada than it is in Australia. Now we're going to take this even one step further and show you what a rainbow looks like in Antarctica. It's pretty much touching the ground. Again, if this is happening, how is that possible? It's pseudoscience. Prism, we need a prism, water, and sunlight, real science. We can do this ourselves. We can tangibly measure it, observe it, and repeat it, which is the definition of science. Now hold on just a minute. I don't know if you guys have read the Bible or researched our ancient ancestors. You know, these people that were much more wise than you are. They've told us many times in many different ways that there is a firmament over the earth, a dome, the shape of a rainbow. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, as above so below. Genesis 1:7. Water, sunlight, prism. All right, so according to the Bible and our ancient ancestors, this is what the earth actually looks like. This is an old map. This is the standard map of the world before the world elites came along, by the way. Antarctica is a 360-degree ice wall around our stationary flat earth. And if there's a dome encompassing the earth, it would be the highest point in the middle, right? The edges are in Antarctica. Here's Canada, Canadian rainbows. Here's Australia, Australian rainbows. And here, and all-encompassing, is Antarctica. And here is Antarctica's rainbows.
Because you cannot have 2 million Jews who die in Germany, and you coin up words, anti-Semitism, anti-what, to protect the Jews. And you look over your shoulder. You have more than 100 million blacks who have died and have been killed. And there's no one who has come up with the concept of anti-black. And Jews are allowed to celebrate. And if you say anything against the Jews, then you are labeled as anti-Semitic.
But can't black people do the same thing?
We don't have control over the system that narrates this story so that we can actually be, when you say, you cannot say to me 2 million Jews, whether it is true or it is exaggerated, that's a conversation for another day. But 2 million Jews die. Hitler is the most horrible man. Leopold kills 20 million Africans, and he's still not the most West man that ever lived. Can you process that? Hitler kills 2 million white people. He's the most evil man that ever lived.
Her name was not Pocahontas. She was not some grown woman that fell in love with a man and ran away to Europe and got married. No. She was a 12-year-old girl kidnapped by a 25-year-old man, taken, forced to be married, raped, paraded around like a fucking zoo animal, and then died of infections after bearing the colonizers' children. Her name was Matoka. Pocahontas isn't a thing. That was the name the colonizers gave her. Her name was Matoka. We have not forgotten. We will never forget the truth. Her name was Matoka.
There is no reason in the world for us to believe that European Americans will ever educate our children correctly. Ain't no reason in the world. Why would you believe that? What would give you the idea that you could ever convince these people to educate your children right? I don't care how much you protest, how much you demand, they will never do it. What they will end up doing is end up getting some white folks to teach them Afrocentric orientations. Because anybody in their right minds would know that anyone who has systematically blocked you from knowing for 3 centuries will not change overnight, over a year, over a decade, over a score of years, or even over a century. The only way we'll ever be able to really educate our children is to do it ourselves.
You pretty much only ever had white teachers. So if you're white, you were relentlessly reflected at the front of the room. Yet these teachers are now in the position to decide who's smart, who belongs where, who should be punished for what. And we see this empirically in the outcomes of tracking, special ed referrals, punishment, expulsion, the school to prison pipeline.
The most drastic thing that happened in the summer of '69 was all of a sudden they took all the marijuana and all the hallucinogens were taken out of Atlanta. and the only drug you could buy was heroin. The only drug you could buy was heroin. And we were drug users, so we started using heroin.
Good planning. Get everyone doped up.
People started dying off. People started ODing, dying, just became, useless, worthless junkies. And that was the most effective diffuser of the revolution that they, came up with, and it worked.
African American. I'm the definition of African American.
And troublesome, and to as a Sudanese American or an outsider who's using African American in a very technical term, the same way that Elon Musk is an African American, I think it is a bit disingenuous. But the bigger issue here, I think, is that this idea of equating of one side to the other side often loses track of this issue of power.
Hey guys, so just in case you weren't aware of what a terrible world we live in, I've already been mispigmented 5 times this morning, and it's only 10:30 a.m. I was at the grocery store, I was checking out. This cashier says to me, "Are you a white guy that's wearing a do-rag?" And I said, "Excuse me, bigot? Did you just call me white?" I was literally shaking. I was like, I am a transracial black man. And transracial black men are black men. And it's just, it's so sad that I have to explain this basic fact to people, that white people that were assigned the wrong skin pigmentation at birth can reconcile that skin pigmentation with their racial identity. And transracial black men are black men. I don't know what's so hard for people to understand about that.
So everybody has been talking about this new series, Cracker. You can see the trailer on YouTube. Basically, the premise of the show, it's a modern day series where it's about where black people become slave owners and white people become the slaves. And it's, I've been seeing a lot of TikTok videos of conservative white people that are super scared by this premise coming up, right? And they're like, oh my God, what if this actually happens? This is going to cause a divide. Let me tell you something, white people. If you're scared by this premise, it's because you've been shitty to black people over the years. Because me, I'm not worried about this premise of this TV show at all. Because even if this did happen in real life and white people became slaves to black people, I know that I would get to be a house cracker.
You know who I am?
I do not know who you are. That's why I'm asking for your license and your registration. Sir, please stay in the car. There's no need to get out of the car.
No, we're good. We're cool. You know who I am? You must be new. I'm Earl Buckley. I've been on this force for 30 years.
I've heard all about you, Mr. Buckley. I know the name very well. It's unfortunate to meet in these circumstances.
Under those circumstances, I think you should be a little careful, maybe.
I mean, sir, it's not okay to be drinking and driving in the middle of the afternoon. You're clearly intoxicated. Should we do a breathalyzer? I'm pretty sure we're going to see that you're well over the legal limit.
I know breathalyzer is work for you, so I wouldn't bother. I don't think it's necessary. I'm fine. I got a half mile and I'll be where I want to be.
You realize
we're cool.
90% of all accidents happen within a half a mile of where people live.
Oh, yeah. Now, yeah. Hey, listen, don't quote me no damn statistics.
Well,
I know the law, and you're apparently just learning it.
I mean, I know the law, sir. I also know that there's children out.
Excuse me for a minute.
It's not safe to be intoxicated while you're driving, especially around children.
Excuse me for a minute, I'm on the phone. Hey, Jimmy. Yeah, can you send someone down here I got this rookie cop, and I need someone to come down here and yank on his leash before he bites the wrong hand. You know what I mean, Jimmy? Alright. Yeah, he's brand new. I seen him around, but he's, he's a little foggy on how things work. Alright, Jimmy. Bye-bye.
Zwart kinders in de school? Ja, dan komt je nog eens naar school in. Maar voor school, en schooltijd tot eerste pauze. Zo zwart is, na eerste pauze was zo niks. Hoekom? Want ons gaan naar Duitsland. Hoekom? Dan mag je naar school wees. Hoekom? Want toen zei die van hulle nie, dan mag je naar school komen. Ja, reis met mensen nie. En ik praat een zwarte taal, hoe kunnen we ons verstaan? Sal jy dan Afrikaans praat? En dan gaan ze ook niet kleren en stank.
Did you know a black man once turned his house into a human booby trap just to keep slave catchers out? Because apparently we've been about that action, and they just conveniently forget to mention it. Meet Lewis Hayden, the original I wish a slave catcher would energy. Born into slavery in Kentucky, Lewis said, "Yeah, I'm good on that." He escaped, made it to Boston, and instead of minding his free black business, he built a literal fortress. See, his house wasn't just a stop on the Underground Railroad. It was the whole operation. If slave catchers came knocking, Lewis had gunpowder and dynamite by the front door. Not a warning, not a prayer. Explosives. Catch one wrong move and poof, everybody's meeting their maker. And guess what? It worked. Slave catchers stayed scared because they knew pulling up on Lewis Hayden meant that you were voluntarily signing up to be blown all the way into next week. And because Lewis was that dude, he didn't just hide freedom seekers. He also fought for school desegregation, helped black soldiers fight in the Civil War, and made Boston a full-on no-go zone for the Fugitive Slave Act. But you don't hear about him, do you? Because history loves to sell you peaceful marches and prayer hands, but not black folks out here locking the doors and setting the traps. Lewis Hayden wasn't here for the turn the other cheek life. He said, "Come get these hands or this explosion." And honestly, mood. Say his name. Lewis Hayden.
He reaches the 78th floor, the floor of impact. He comes out of the stair tower, and as clear as you listening to me here, and I know I get passionate and I apologize to your listeners for that. He says, "We're on floor 78, the floor of impact. We've got 2 fires and we can handle them." 1 minute later, the whole building collapses. That's not normal. That is not acceptable. That is not what happened.
And this is on tape?
It's on tape.
You had
Chief Palmer had reached the fire on the 78th floor of the South Tower and devised a plan to put it out.
We got 2 isolated pockets of fire. We should be able to knock it down with 2 lines. Radio that. 78th floor, numerous 1045 call horns.
If the 78th floor was a raging inferno like the government would have us believe, then Palmer wouldn't have gotten as far as he did, and certainly wouldn't have been able to put it out.
There is no law. There is no law that requires the average American worker in the private sector to pay a direct, unapportioned tax on their labor and compensation for services. There is no law.
I really expected that, of course there's a law that you can point to in the law book, the code, that requires you to file a tax return. Of course there is. Maybe I don't know what it is right then as he was speaking to me, but sure. So naively, I agreed to go off and research it and get back to him. 3.5 months later, I was at that point where I couldn't find the statute that clearly made a person liable, at least not me and most people I know, and I had no choice in my mind except to resign.
I had to leave the IRS because I presented evidence that I had accumulated indicating that the agency was violating the law and violating people's rights. And I asked the agency for a response to my sincere concerns. And the answer I got was that they would not respond to my concerns and that they would provide me with the paperwork necessary to tender my resignation.
And if you think that I am somehow inflating numbers, let me be unambiguous. Under every treatment of tax provision, if I were to tell you that there is an 88% controlling interest of any organization, you might conclude that that actually aggregates into a controlling interest. And it turns out that if we look at the foundation donations to the World Health Organization, 88% of those come from a single organization, the Gates Foundation. That constitutes a violation of every competitiveness law in Europe and every competitiveness law in the United States. This is absolutely not only not an independent charitably funded donation, but more importantly, under the tax laws on both sides of the Atlantic, this constitutes directed donations which specifically are forbidden and do not have any place anywhere in the Charter of the World Health Organization or any of the UN-affiliated organizations. When I say this is a crime, I mean it's a tax crime, a racketeering crime, a money laundering crime, and now the crime of racketeering leading to murder and global terrorism. Next slide.
My son came home last week, clearly shaken up, and asked to privately talk to me. He said, "Mom, we took a test today at school, but the questions were really weird. I didn't know how to answer them. I didn't want to take the test, but my teachers made me."
What was the big deal? I mean, this survey couldn't have been that bad, right? Let's take a look. Your sexual orientation is not the same as your gender identity. Which of the following best describes your orientation? Straight or heterosexual, lesbian or gay, asexual, bisexual, pansexual, queer. I am not sure. Questioning. I do not know what this question means. I prefer not to answer. I'll say I prefer not to answer. The next question asks about your gender identity. Gender identity is how you see yourself. Questions for middle schoolers, right? Does this survey fall under inclusivity, education? When did it become acceptable for adults to present information like this to minors on taxpayer-funded school time?
So there are about 110 million Americans who have not chosen to do the Real ID, and all 110 of them and everybody else should choose never to do the Real ID. If you already have one, if you've got a gold star on, go and get a standardized driver's license. If you're afraid of flying, go get your passport. But do not take the Real ID. Because the whole idea here, the state of Pennsylvania asked Trump to shut down this program. Yep. They called it a usurpation of states' rights. Yep. The federal government has taken over driving and identification over the entire country. And they're going to take all of your primary identification documents and keep them for themselves. You're going to have to give them your social security number, your birth certificate, and your marriage certificate, and they will hold them. They've never had them before. You are essentially recertifying yourself as an American, and then they want to put this and digitize it, put it on your phone, and be able to shut down your access anytime you do something they don't like. This is not a simple ID card, and this is probably going to move into the global UN identification system that the UN wants to create for the entire world.
Computer chips inside the game balls. Don't believe me? Google it. Now, I discussed in my last video that I believe that these computer chips can be turned into an electromagnet, and thus you can have the ball be manipulated with magnets and technology and cause, let's say, a field goal that was gonna be good to bounce off the uprights instead. Now, this isn't the only way that this technology is being used. I also believe that this very same magnetic technology is being implemented into the players' gloves, especially wide receivers, making all those awesome one-handed catches that they routinely seem to make.
This is just too funny. This lady's here, and then there she is. and this man is here. Where is he? He's here. And then he's here as well. Though my favourite one is this lady who's in front of Tao, who is behind Tao, but just doing the same face. They're quite literally doing the same face. I just don't understand. Why didn't they change their costumes? At least take off the accessories, man. Like, what?
Every time I touch my phone, it freaking tap it crazy. Tap it crazy. Look, I'm tapping the table and nothing.
I can't lie, when I first watched this, I thought this was fake, but after doing some research, it turns out this is real. It's kind of hard to understand what's going on here, but in this video, this woman has captured a camel spider inside of a jar, and every time she focuses on it with her phone, the spider appears to react. But conversely, every time she taps on the table next to the spider, it has no reaction at all. So the question here is, how in the world does this spider know the camera is focusing on it, and how can it feel it? Well, this is actually due to something known as a LiDAR scanner that's located on iPhone cameras. This stands for light detection and ranging, and LiDAR technology also uses infrared light, which is invisible to the naked eye. However, spiders are sensitive enough to be able to feel the LiDAR scanner every time it goes off when you're trying to autofocus, which is exactly what they're reacting to. There are actually quite a few of these videos online as well of spiders and camel spiders reacting to this, so if you want to check those out, they're pretty interesting.
If you have to be out in the sun for a long time, put a big hat on and just cover your skin. What about sunscreens? What's the problem with sunscreens? Sunscreens contain something like, say, zinc oxide, which is not toxic, but it is brought down to nanoparticles, and nanoparticles are barely measurable. And they do that so that it goes into a cream form and it can be nicely smoothed on the skin. But they're finding these nanoparticles in marine life. And they do not know at this stage whether those nanoparticles can get through the blood-brain barrier. Not a lot is known. It is suggested that one of the contributing factors for the demise of our Great Barrier Reef is the amount of Aussies that are swimming in the water with sunscreens with these nanoparticles in them.
Mm-hmm.